Michael Forrest. These are artifacts that he's dug out. They're not fake. They're actually real, frequency-wise, which is really cool. You want to just tell a little bit about Michael? What?
Yeah, majority of these are from Tula Hidalgo, Mexico. There's a couple from Abuelos de Jalisco here. This guy, as you can see, the arts, and that might be why the time frames are different, because this area here, even though the stories are the same with these same type of deities and stuff, we definitely get different carbon dates and different age variances from each location.
Wow, it's kind of weird. It pulls me into their intelligence, because that's what I crave, the intelligence. But this is like, whoa, this is really cool. It's kind of like a candy store for me, because they've actually created a physical representation of their intelligence.
And the amount of love and detail the stories have on each one is really significant. You know, you learn from these pieces. I mean, I'll have some and I'll look at it 2 months later after I get it and be like, oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. This guy's like the wisest.
It's a whistle that you can play.
It's a whistle?
Yeah. And the eyes are the reeds.
Wow, that's pretty cool. This one, though, does feel the wisest. So this is where, like I was talking in my talk, this is where they start to play around with, say, physical density. With aliens, they're wispy. They don't really have as much form or function the way humans do. This one, like I said, this is like where they started to understand, say, the concepts of, well, this is the origin of like our five senses. That's what it feels like. So this was like getting tools. This is where we start to actually have tools to sense our environment, because at some level we had to create like sensory tools to understand or reference our environment. This is where that started.
Many of these pieces seem like tools of some form. I mean, interesting mallets and functional things, you know.
But these are, those are functional, those are physical tools, but I'm talking about, we need a sense of, say, sense of smell, a higher sense of smell, or a sense of hearing, and so on like that. You know, so we can understand our perception. And this is where we also start to calibrate our senses for a human, rather than like animal senses, because animal senses are different. They're very perceptive compared to our human senses. This is where like sensory perception gets adapted more into human intelligence, what's best for humans. Dogs can hear a lot higher, but we don't need to hear at those levels. So this is where that, there's a whale right there. Whoa.
That's cool.
It's cool that they came after your two talks. The only time I've seen them are after your talk.
This one just feels more animalistic frequencies, although they're intelligent. They don't have compassion. These and this, and this is interesting too. This cross. These, they don't really have compassion like humans do. They're more animalistic, like carnal desires. Okay. Although highly intelligent, highly perceptive.
Probably why we're an asset, because we can have the emotion and the feeling and the love and
yeah.
I think that's what they're hoping.
This, there's a lot of pain in this century. Yeah, there's a lot of pain in this one. Or they went through a lot of suffering, basically.
Do you have a feeling of what era? Yeah, is this pre-human era, I guess would be?
Pre-human era.
Okay.
Much more than, I would say, the 13,000 years. Like, way back. Thousands. Back then, time and space functioned a little differently. So if you've noticed how time is speeded up, that makes sense to you?
Yeah.
Like a 24-hour day has more. It feels like a 30-hour day. Back then, it could have been like 5 hours, could have been a whole day. Time is kind of, in today's time, it would be about like 500,000, 750,000 years old. This would be the youngest at about. This bit is like really old.
Yeah, it goes inside of a handbag. One of the handbags they hold. It goes in the top of it. This is this a ring? Do you think?
It's
Big guy.
yeah, it's a big guy. Feels like this was a piece to something else. You put the two rings together, and it forms something. Huh?
Your squiggle on the back.
Oh wow, it does.
Yeah, with the cobra head at the top with the sun disk on there.
Yeah. It's more of a. I mean, it could be a ring. Is it a ring?
This is another one here that's kind of a similar size.
Oh. So these represent different tribes. The leader would carry, and it defines who the tribe is, where it came from, and something like that. Yeah. And then if two tribes got together, they would stack these things together. But it's about connecting. It's like putting things together and it'll form a piece. Pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, the metalworks.
This is a newer. Yeah. You know, and these things, they might actually look like that. So they're not like humans, like drawing pictures of aliens. They actually look like that. Right? So, or they have this kind of form. It could have been, like say, this could have been like this piece on this staff. You know what I mean? The staff they had, and it held like that. It was more like that rather than a ring. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, it's got like a cartouche in there.
Yeah. Pretty ornate for any human, even today, to create something like this.
Right? There's no mold that's going to work with that design.
Yeah.
That's an interesting metallurgy skill for sure.
Yeah, this is really
Some rhythmic looking language, or like the language that I didn't have a good explanation for. There's over 10,000 of those symbols.
These are coordinates. Oh. Wow, this is really cool. This is what I talk about. These are coordinates of space and time. They're not necessarily a language. It's almost like a map on them, which is really cool. So,
yeah, the geometry on those symbols is pretty pristine, so that would make a lot of sense.
if you understand the coordinate of where that is, it's like a map. Basically, this would be like, if it was like Russia, the culture of Russian would be imprinted with that symbol. So it's like the Chinese, you know, they're based on symbols, not like letters. But instead of physical objects, these are actually dimensions of time and space. So these were probably travelers.
Yeah. We find star maps and astrolabes, like the ones that they found in Iraq, that show, you know, the detailed constellations with the North Star in the middle. And
Oh wow, yeah, so this is more like that. For those people, just like the way we read our alphabet,
Right.
you know, this would be, oh, that's galactic star, whatever, you know. And it's not necessarily a planet, but it's like dimensions. These people, or these beings, they didn't travel planetary, they traveled through consciousness. It's a planetary system of consciousness.
Okay.
Not necessarily like planets or stars.
more dimensional.
Yeah. But, you know, if you go into a certain dimension, you'd see different stars and planets. That makes sense?
Yep. Yep.
Wow, this is really cool.
I see that they put like fingerprints on these things.
Oh, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, this thing up here with him holding that, and you know, it's I don't know really what to make of that.
This seems more medicinal.
They signify a lot of DNA manipulation. You can see the DNA strand kind of like on this ring, but on a lot of these pieces with complex like surgical like scenes like that where they're doing, like you say, medicinal type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, this is more medicinal. It's not manipulating, I guess. It's creating.
Yeah, okay, that's a better word.
Understanding, so they could survive.
That makes a lot of sense. Because it starts out on some of these where they have the serpent-like tail, and then they have feet with wings, and they're wearing helmets and different types of masks. That makes sense of an evolutionary story here.
Yeah. It's like how can we make our DNA better? Yeah, this is very medicinal. You guys were highly intelligent to be observant of how they create themselves. But even in this, even way back then, the physical body, this would be the most efficient shape of the human body. It's pretty amazing. So our human form is quite old, I guess.
Yeah. Or the start of it.
Yeah, the start of it. Yeah. I think this is where they also started to copy birthing from animals. This is the start of getting pregnant and birthing and so on like that.
We do find the birthing scenes of like the Isis. We show Isis with the birthing and stuff on quite a few of these. So that's interesting to.
Yeah, so that was like an innovation. It just didn't God didn't bless us. Poof.
Before the masculine and feminine were separated, possibly. Like these guys didn't. It doesn't show on a lot of these that there's a sex. So they just have a generic look to them.
Yeah. So this is where birthing started. There were animals, from what I've seen. We always duplicate or copy nature, even like AI and stuff like that. If we're copying at some level of nature. So back in the day, they didn't birth. They just literally rendered themselves in physical form. But to stay in physical form, you'd have to have a birthing process. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you're a frequency, you just create density and you're here in any shape that you want. So this was the most efficient. But then to stay in this shape, you'd have to create of this dimension. So this is where birthing.
That's the genesis.
That's the genesis of birth for humans. Which is pretty cool. Wow.
Last night, one of the talks was saying this symbol is the symbol of like the fallopian tubes.
Oh. Yeah, maybe this is how it's like, maybe this is where they also dissected a hell of a lot of animals. To go, how did that happen? You know what I mean? Bigger and bigger animals. And it's like, how do we create that here? The biggest part is like, your frequency, you don't have density, but you can say transmute yourself into a physical form.
Making things in your image.
Yeah, making things of your image. But then how do you create that image from, animals do it this way, and they got ovaries, they got this, they got that. So they start to duplicate. That's how they did it. So and then they start to incorporate that. So there's a lot of, mutilation. Not in a bad way, not in a destructive way, but mutilation, how does this shit work?
Yeah.
Basically. This is really cool. There's a lot of information here.
Yeah. Some of the tablets are
Where did you find that one?
That's Abuelos de Jalisco, Mexico. This cup is something that it shows the Anunnaki type beings with the tree of life, but it also has the pine cones fixed on there, and they're picking them off, which is something they're always holding. And there's actually one of the pine cones there.
The pine cone represent pineal gland.
Could.
It could. It feels like husbandry, agriculture, where they started farming. Mm-hmm. And husbandry are like animals. It's not just random animals. They raise, concept of raising animals. But again, really, really advanced. This is like actually the initial state of farming.
It's really iconic. As you can see, there's an ear of corn here. And Enki is the corn god. And he Quetzalcoatl's known for bringing agriculture to the Mayans and whatnot. So there's possibly a connection between those two beings.
It's like the intelligence of agriculture.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge level where you start to manipulate like plants and animals. You're not a scavenger looking for food. This feels like not everybody would have this cup. It would be more of a leader cup.
You can see that.
That's right. That's like it's
Yeah, so they're,
Wow,
and
very
I
cool.
often think that they were trying to block us from actually
This is
coming together
probably a ring.
loving way, and so I feel that they created.
Still massive.
Still fucking-
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Because I'm studying psychology.
Like the dinosaurs, they were so huge.
Yeah.
You know,
If it is that old, things could have been bigger for sure.
Exactly, they were big, and then it's like, well, maybe we don't need to make them that big. You know what I mean? And then you just create efficiencies of like scale. Just like any invention, the first phone was fucking this big.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's just like
Backpack.
yeah, exactly. This is interesting.
That position's called the chokmo, and it's very commonly found in Mesoamerica or multiple cultures. So it's interesting to see it from this one as well.
This feels like a space traveler to me.
Yeah. You've seen like King Pakal's stele where it almost looks like he's in a spaceship that they found there.
Yeah.
That could very well be, I think, along those same lines. And that's a Toltec find, I think, too. They're over in Guatemala.
This feels like a space traveler, like Inception. They have that cool guy like that. Higher knowledge or higher intelligence. Yeah, and this just feels like a coordinate that it's kind of cool. It's just a coordinate, not planetary, but space and time that they need to get to. It's pretty amazing. Definitely not human.
No.
None of these are.
I think it might be a UFO on the back of his head there. So that might signify the traveling.
Oh yeah, didn't notice that. Yeah, maybe that was their frequency craft.
Yeah.
I see more of a not physical craft, but they have to create a craft to say transcend them in space and time. If you're traveling from dimension to dimension to dimension, you can't travel, otherwise you'll get fragmented. So they create like a frequency shift, and they put a shield or whatever around them. They would travel within that space dimensionally or frequency wise, and they could travel through dimensions. Wow, I gotta try that. See if you could travel into dimension. Wow, this is really cool.
You're the sort of twin flame.
Wow.
And it's the same. It seems to.
This feels like a Jesus thing. I think they actually.
Yeah.
You look at the story of Osiris and how similar it is in terms of him being crucified and stuff. It could be a fractal.
Way before Jesus.
It could be a fractal of Jesus.
Yeah.
He might have had numerous incarnations, or that energy, I should say, could have had multiple incarnations. And Jesus was just his flesh, human creation version, and that's what we know him as, because we're human.
This feels like a wisdom keeper.
So he would have been finding out.
Only like wise men would wear this.
It was actually found, there's a stone box, it's limestone that sits about this high, that has a winged Sumerian looking being on the front of it, and it's built just to hold that.
Yeah. This feels like a time machine thing.
Interesting.
Or where they kept wisdom. Or as they accumulated wisdom, they would like put it on here on their level of where they are. So, wow, this is pretty cool.
And all of these things, I don't know. So, I can see maybe here it kind of how it turns red. Everything on here has either a luminescence or a phosphorescence. And the question is how did these beings know that these items did that, or why were they infused with this or inlaid with this type of reflection or luminescence, I should say?
Do you want to shine the light on it?
Yeah, this one shows really well here.
They were right outside the window. The whole windjammer window, all the way down, it was like 4 people deep. Well, we were sitting there with friends.
Wow, so
His
cool.
wife.
It's really great at night. You can, I mean, that whole thing, like the skull, just glowing green because the little light on the surface makes the whole thing inside glow.
Yeah.
Really cool mom. She had this
Pretty amazing.
short, spiked hair.
Can't quite catch the glow on the camera.
It's a little bright, unfortunately.
Well, it just looks more glowy in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah, the glow. Where does the glow come from?
My only theory is that these look almost like angelic beings in the story of like the Anunnaki. They had a splendor or a glow about them when they'd enter a room. So maybe it had ultraviolet light upon it, and that's maybe. This is probably before the light bulb, so maybe they lit up these items just in their presence. Or, I don't know. It's really interesting. A lot of work to put that on there.
If you didn't have light, like you said, they figured out ways to make things glow in the night for them to see better. But it is an artistic feature to have. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.